My life before Jesus, I guess you would categorise as a standard religious mindset. I grew up in the church with my mum and a few of my family members. We were part of the Salvation Army, so it was all very close-knit. It was very comfortable. I knew pretty much everyone there. It was quite a small church at the time. And like I said, it was just easy. It was comfortable. We learnt about God on a Sunday. We did Sunday school, learnt about Jesus. So I always knew that there was a God. I always believed that there was a God. That was never something that I ever doubted. And I knew of Jesus, but I didn't know the importance of Jesus at the time. And like I said, we were there for many, many years. A bit later on in my teenage years, we moved churches. Again, still like a standard religious mindset. We used to go on a Sunday, if we could be bothered, go through the ritual of standing up, singing a few hymns, hearing the sermon and going home. And I remember now, even looking at it, in both churches, there'd be moments that I would feel God speaking, but not really recognise that it was God speaking directly to me, because my idea of God was just this guy in the sky, I guess, that you could pray to. But I didn't understand the personal aspect of a relationship with him. So I'd come out of church and I'd be like, oh wow, that sermon really felt like it was pointed towards me. And I'd say to my mum the same thing, and she'd be like, yeah, that was really weird, wasn't it? And then we'd get back in the car, drive home and live the exact same lifestyle and not let the message change us at all. Which is weird when you think about it now, because you can look at it and see that God was moving in the other churches I was in, but I just didn't have the understanding. And then in 2013, I went to college, studied childcare, and I bumped into a girl there that I actually knew from school, and she invited me here, and I was like, oh, okay, I didn't realise this girl was a Christian, but that's cool. Came here for a youth meeting on a Saturday, and it was the weirdest thing I'd ever experienced. I felt really, really emotional. We worshipped, my old churches, we would sing hymns and whatever, but this was worship now, and I was like, what is these songs? This is really upbeat. This is actually quite cool. I didn't know church could be like this. Is this genuine music? I don't understand. It was really, really weird. And then obviously Rich was a youth leader at the time, and he'd do a little message. And again, I'd be like, oh, okay, this is lasting longer than I'm used to. Normally I've got an hour service and I go home. This is taking a little bit longer. Even back then, obviously, Rich had a lot to say, so it was really cool. But I just didn't understand it. But there was a part of me that actually loved coming in here, but also hated it, because it was nothing that I knew. Everything I knew about church, everything I knew about God, everything I knew about, I guess, going to a church was all one way, was all religious, was all structure, was routine, and this broke everything I ever knew about church. And then we did like I said, youth meetings on a Saturday, and I remember one time I came and it was really quite dead. There was probably about 10 of us here, and then at the end Rich was like, oh, if anyone wants to give their heart to Jesus, put your hand up and come forward and receive prayer. And I didn't understand it, but I knew that something was stirring in me, that I needed Jesus. I needed something that I didn't have, so I came forward, and I think Jess prayed for me. I'd never met Jess before, but she just came, she prayed with me, and it was really, really emotional. I know in that moment I felt something, and it was nothing I'd ever experienced before. And I remember going home feeling really nervous about telling my mum and dad, but I was so excited at the same time. So I was like, Mum, Dad, I've done this thing, I've accepted Jesus into my heart, and I think I've become a Christian and everything else. And my mum was really excited and supportive of it, and my dad was like, oh, that's cool, whatever. So even though I know I'd given my heart to Jesus a couple of years before, the surrender wasn't there. So even though there was something and there was an acceptance of Jesus, there wasn't a surrender to Jesus. So for me, it was a slower journey. Since surrendering to God, it's been an incredible journey, obviously. Like I said, I studied childcare in college. I always had a heart for children. I always had a heart for looking after younger kids, and always knew I wanted to work in a nursery. So obviously I did my college course, became a nursery practitioner, and worked in a nursery for 4 years. Absolutely loved it, and thought that that was what I was going to do for my entire life. Could never imagine myself doing anything else. We can have our plans, but God can completely change the script. So he started to put on my heart this like passion for young people, which I did not understand at all. Then I remember in 2018, we'd just come back from a trip from London, and we had a couple of like young people in the car. And I remember saying to Rich, like, I hate young people, man, but I love them. And I just couldn't understand like this mixture between like, they do my head in, but I've got such a heart for them that I just did not understand. And there was a young boy in the bus at the time, and then he just started asking us about God and Jesus and all these amazing questions, and we were able to lead him to the Lord. And it was just like the most surreal experience, because that was nothing I thought I was capable of doing, for one. Obviously I know it's not me, it's God. But the fact that the conversation previous was like, I just don't understand it, I love but hate these kids, and now I'm leading a kid to Jesus, like how incredible is that? And that's when things started to change. So from that point I was like, okay, I really feel called to doing something with the youth, like maybe doing youth work, like a little bit or whatever. I remember thinking to myself, like, I want to spend more time with the youth, like what I have isn't enough. So I remember like making the decision over the Christmas break to go into work on January and say I wanted to cut my hours. So I went from 5 days a week to 4 days a week, and I'd always have a day off that I could just do youth work and plan for the youth stuff. And it was amazing, but then it still didn't feel like enough. So I was doing that for a couple of months, and then come like May, June time, I was thinking like, okay, I feel like God's calling me out of my job completely, which was mental, because a couple of months before, like, I did not have any passion for youth. I did not have any idea that I'd be doing youth work, but now I'm almost in this place of thinking like, I think I need to do this. I think I need to leave my job and just throw myself into youth, which made no sense at all. Obviously, I like prayed about it a lot and tried my best to figure out what the plan was. Obviously, we can never know the plan, only God knows. But I went in July, handed in my notice and left my job at the end of August, starting youth work full-time in September. And obviously from that, God's been so faithful. He's been so, he's done so much more than I could ever like dream, ever think, ever ask, like all of it. Like, I can't even put into words the amazing things God has done and the ways that he has moved throughout like the youth journey. When I left my job, we probably had about like 10 youth. Obviously now we have like 30 to 40 youth and young people around. Been able to do like sold out, spring out, snowed out, all the things that I never thought I was capable of doing. God has just been faithful. So if there's anyone struggling to know whether to go all in with God, I would just say go for it. I know for a fact in my own personal life, I've lived many years on the outskirts, like knowing of God, but not surrendering, not submitting to him. And in those moments, in those years, they were like the toughest years of my life. But since being able to just run with it and going all in, it just takes off all the pressure, because you just know that it is not in your hands, it is in his hands. He has good plans for us. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper, not to harm you." When we go all in, that is the things that he has for us. He has good plans, not to harm us, but to prosper us, and he gives us a hope and a future. In our own selves, in our own mindset, like, we can have our own limited idea of what our plan is, but that is nothing in comparison to the plan that God has for your life. So if you are struggling or even like unsure about whether to just like throw yourself onto Jesus, I know for a fact, and everyone here knows, that he will never let you down. In all situations, he is there, he is faithful, and he will never leave you nor forsake you. So just go for it, accept Jesus into your heart and start this amazing journey with him.